Okay, let me see if I can. Okay, now I can see Gurudev. Let me. Haribol, Gurudev.
Haribol.
So before we take the questions, is there anything you want to share?
Well, yeah, we won't have interruption in the call, I don't think, because I'm in a different location with good internet. So, and we were still trying to fix the situation at Audarya with that in that regard, but it's a work in progress. But today, I am in a different location. So I'm actually in south of San Francisco at Vrindavan's mother's house, where her mother has kindly, over the years, given me a room whenever I want to come down here. And I've come down here because I'm on the way to Madhavan, which is exciting, and I'm leaving tomorrow. So it's close to the airport and so forth. Otherwise, Audarya is about 3 hours away from the airport. It's easier for me to come down here. And she has a nice arrangement for me. She's been a big help to us over the years. She gave the money for building the temple at Audarya and other things. Financially, she's helped us a lot, which I've been thinking about since I've been down here the last day or so. She's quite older now, and about 10 years older than me, and from Sweden. Nice lady, and it's nice to see that she has gotten Sukriti for bhakti, and she's got a beautiful daughter in Vrindavan, who's, as everyone knows, I think, or maybe some of you don't, because you knew her very dear to me, and since she was in her teens and joined me, she's must be 50 now or so. Yeah, she's been a tremendous help to me. We're working on, she's my main editor. She took up we wouldn't have books if it weren't for her. She began taking my talks and turning them into little pamphlets just after she joined. I think before she even got second initiation. So she has some natural aptitude and inclination for bhakti and Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Once I had my palm read, and I met a palmist, so I'll read my palm, and he found her on my palm, engraved on my palm from a previous life, coming to assist me. So I thought a bit about that, and then I'm going to Madhavan. We wouldn't have Madhavan without her either. It was her whole idea, and the sacrifices and austerity that she put in to help make that happen. It's a book in itself. And now, with regard to my book, we're working together on finalizing this style sheet. We take quite a long time to do these books. Once they're written, bring them out. And some of you may be wondering about that, but she's very, 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 very thorough, and it makes for the product that we have. It's a huge contribution that she makes to that, and so we're going over and finalizing today. We'll finalize it, the style sheet that Haridas worked on to begin with, which is quite extensive. A style sheet is that which you put together that demonstrates, or tells the copy editor, the proofreaders, this should be in italics, this should be hyphenated, this should be dealt with like this, and so on. And it's a huge list because it's a big book, and there's lots of italicized and hyphenated words, whether they should be hyphenated, capital. It's a real kind of a nightmare of a thing in a way to put together. But we're finalizing that today, and then the first part of the book will go to Lita Saki. Hopefully she has time. I haven't talked to her yet, but to begin the proofreading on that, while we're to polish the rest of the book. So I've been kind of just reflecting on all that my book and what it takes to bring out the books and the history of it and the history of why I'm here and where I'm going and so forth. And I don't know, it's made me just that much more appreciative of Vrindavan and her contribution. Some of you don't know her, so it's worth saying it. No one has shed more blood, I don't think, to help me, and no one understands me better than her, and no one is more reclusive in one sense that of a person. So it's hard to understand her, but that's what I've been thinking about. So you asked. So why don't we go ahead and take the questions?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Vrindavan ki jai.
Right.
So Krishna Das.
Dandava Pranams. Good morning, Guru Maharaj.
Good morning.
So my question is regarding a few statements that I've heard you say, or it's kind of like a running theme throughout several of your lectures, I guess regarding the nature of bhakti compared to jnana and karma. Specifically, that often it's, or I guess this is paraphrasing, but, speaking of it in that movement in the world under the influence of karma is characterized by dissatisfaction and you're trying to act to contact sense objects to feel satisfied, whereas in Gyan movement is still, because now there is satisfaction, realizing one is Atma. And in Bhakti, beyond both karma and Gyan movement is characterized by not lack, but an overflow of fullness, and that one is beyond just satisfied. So my question is, why is it that in many instances, advanced Vaishnavas express what externally appears to be strong dissatisfaction and lamentation, particularly in their humble declarations sometimes of themselves as having no love of God or being plagued by material desires, when in fact they have no material desires and have incredibly high and pure love of God? So this is a bit confusing to me, because on the one hand, it makes sense that humility can lead one to speak in such ways, but because these sadhus have, such high realization and high degree of immersion in bhakti, wouldn't they naturally feel incredibly joyful and like the overflowing of fullness that you speak about and express that externally? So could you please clarify this?
Yes, well, of course, when we speak about bhakti, it's helpful sometimes to think of it as love in the world, although there's a difference, obviously. But it is not still, and it is a movement, and there's ups and downs in it. So we have the classical notion of union and separation, for example, in the Lila. I've compared it to the high and low tide of the ocean. So in the dissatisfaction, in the sense of lacking, and so forth, that's expressed. I know this is not exactly what you're talking about, but I'll get to that. In separation, in love, it sounds miserable. But Chaitanya Charitamrita says, what is that verse I've cited many times? The nature of prem, Krishna prem er adbhuta charit, the wonderful character of prem is Bhaya Bisha, I don't know how to say it, but I got it. I remember it. Bhaya Bisha, Bisha Bhaya, I think I got it. Bhaya Bisha on the inside is like poison, but Bitare outside like poison. Bitare Anandamoy, Krishna Premya Adbhuta Charita. On the inside, it's full of ananda, but on the outside, it looks like this person must have drank poison. He looks pretty bad. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu weeping, and who wants to end up like that? Incapable of, functioning in the world and so forth. But such is the nature of the ananda as it expresses itself outwardly in separation. So there is a place for expressing dissatisfaction in with regard to the highest attainment, even though what's being expressed is arising out of the deepest sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, love of Krishna. Now, when you speak of devotees saying things about themselves, let's take the famous example of Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami, who said that I am lower than a worm in stool, and anyone who hears my name will become it will be impious, to hear my encounter, to hear my name, and who speaks my name will commit an impious act, and so forth. So these are the kind of statements that I think that you're asking about. Why doesn't he feel full and complete, and why does he depict himself as low and having material desires, and so on and so forth? Well, one thing about the nature of bhakti is that as the finite or the infinitesimal comes in connection with the finite, with the infinite, he naturally, the finite naturally feels what it's like to be finite in comparison to the infinite. And so there are moments like this in bhakti, where we come in touch with Bhagavan, and also we know there are experiences that I've come in touch with this wonderful source of myself in the form of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, only by his grace. Although the fact is there's a lot of effort that we put in. The experience is that the effort does not compare to the grace that's involved. I've given the example that if you're out in the field and you fall in a dry well, how are you going to get out? And so you have to yell for help. Someone will come and throw you a rope. They'll tell you to hold on to that. You have to make the effort to hold on to it. But when they pull you up, you don't think, boy, I sure held on to that rope. Great. That's not even in your mind. It's just that I yelled. That's what I did, and I got help, and here I am, standing on firm ground again, above ground again, only by the grace of, even my yell is, is not the core cause of my being rescued. You are. So this is an analogy to help us understand how the devotees, as they advance, feel, even as from our perspective, they put in a lot of effort and they're pure and so on and so forth. Their tendency is to magnify their shortcomings in light of whom they're in touch with. It has no shortcomings whatsoever, and no even capacity to be in this situation, which the Buddha Jeev, the Tasta Jeev has. It has the capacity to be in this situation. Krishna has no capacity. His eternal associates have no capacity to be in this situation. So there's a difference. And so there's a magnification, so to speak, of one's faults that from our perspective, we wouldn't think of them as faults. Let me give you an example to illustrate this point. Madhavendra Puri, who could be a greater devotee than Madhavendra Puri? Of course, there are many who could be greater than, who's the best. But Madhavendra Puri went from Vrindavan to Orissa, all the way across India on foot in order to gather some sandalwood, which was available at that distant location, to bring back to his deity in Vrindavan, who complained about the heat. Sandalwood is, you grind the sandalwood with water and it turns into a paste, and you apply it to your forehead, and it has a cooling effect, right? So this is the service he did, and the effort that he made was considerable. That's a long walk, and he had to walk back, carrying the sandalwood. So in the context of his journey, he had the darshan of Chirchor Gopinath, who's named after the darshan that he afforded Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri had the darshan, and he tasted the sweet rice that is offered daily to Gopinath. His name is Gopinath. Tasting the sweet rice, it was so unbelievable that a desire manifested in his heart to know how to prepare that sweet rice so that he could offer it to his Gopal deity when he returned, exactly what they put in it. And then, he left the temple, but then he began to think, just see, I really wanted to just taste, I probably just wanted to taste sweet rice myself. He started thinking like this about himself. It wasn't true, but in his humility, this is how he naturally felt. Meanwhile, Gopinath in the night appeared in a dream to the pujari and said, I have taken the sweet rice and put it underneath my dress, hidden it there, a portion of it, and I want you to find this Madhavendra Puri and give it to him, so that he may know how to taste it and explain to him how it's made and so forth. So the pujari was stunned at the darshan in his dream of the deity, and he went out in the marketplace. Where's Madhavendra Puri? Where's Madhavendra Puri? Gopinath has stolen sweet rice for him. So he became known as Chirachor, who steals the sweet rice, Gopinath. So the fault of Madhavendra Puri was not a fault, but in his own mind, he was thinking like that for reasons that I've explained. It's what is the mercy of Sri Krishna when it's fully attained? One thinks, I'm completely unworthy of this, and it's a natural feeling. So we find those types of expressions in the poems of many devotees, and it's a sign of their satisfaction, although it's expressed as dissatisfaction, loss, and faults on their part. Does that help?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess it's like a out of the fullness of having attained prem, they externally express things that appear differently. That's sort of what I'm understanding. Is that right?
Well, yeah. Let me give you another example to close with. Have you heard of a lover's quarrel? It's not something you don't want to get in the middle of. It's thought to be an expression of love, because if you didn't love the person, you wouldn't get that upset about it. So you have a quarrel. Those who understand this is a lover's quarrel, I'm not going to get in the middle of this, because they're both going to end up criticizing me, because they actually love one another, and this is an expression of that love that doesn't look like love, but it is. Radha gets mad at Krishna, and she is. And she says, I don't love him. I wouldn't want to be around him. If you listen carefully, those who can actually hear, all they can hear is, I want to be with him, I want to be with him, I want to be with him. Don't ever bring that scoundrel around here again. He's gone off with Chandravali, and instead of meeting me. That's where he's been. I never want to see his face again. Oh, he ruined my reputation. So her handmaidens, all they can hear is, she wants to be with Krishna, she wants to be with Krishna. Okay.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.
Jai. Sri Krishna ki jai. Sri Radhe ki jai. Another question?
Sumati has a question.
You need to unmute, Smarty.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to scroll down so I could. Oh, okay. She got it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I can't wait to see you in March.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is about the Brahma-vimohan-lila. And I'm reading Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary from the 10th canto. And he's saying how Krishna did not reveal to Balaram what was going on after Brahma stole the calves and the cowherd boys, because he did not want Balaram to suffer any separation from his friends. So Balaram was also covered by Mahamaya, not Mahamaya, Yogamaya.
So
but
when you
then-
speak of Brahma-vimohan, it's Rama-vimohan.
Right. So then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Krishna himself did not suffer from any separation because he was close to them in an expanded form that searched for their calves. So I was wondering if you could explain that. I never heard that before, that during that year, Krishna was also in another form with the original boys and calves.
I think that, yes, the idea is this, that Krishna was lunching with his friends, and Brahma came on the scene. And seeing this scene, he wasn't sure what was going on. He had seen Krishna before at the dawn of creation, but he was speaking the 4 essential verses of the Bhagavatam and blessed him with the Gyan Mudra. And now he was holding the sweet rice and fruit in his left hand and acting in a way that is for people who don't follow even the rules of Varnashram, children, and meanwhile he had been praised by the gods who saw him liberate Aghasura. So Brahma's coming in to weigh in on this, and so of course that's why he then wanted to test who this Krishna was. Is this he could have been thinking, is this an imposter? So there's really, if we look really carefully at this, there's no blemish really on Brahma's part. Brahma thought he was a big offender, and Krishna arranged the whole thing also to enlighten Brahma. So we can exonerate Brahma really of any offense, but in his own mind, he doesn't think like that. At any rate, he came in and he exercised his power, by which he thought he had accomplished stealing the calves and the cowherd boys. But what happened was that the cows wandered off, and the boys were concerned. Krishna said, I will go and fetch them. I'll be back in a minute. He went and he came back in a minute. That's what happened. He went and came back in a minute, and brought the calves back, because they were never really stolen, and the boys were never really stolen, because Brahma doesn't have the power to cover over and delude and separate these eternal associates from Krishna. So what happened was Krishna manifested separate Mayic kind of duplicates of himself and the calves, of the boys and the calves that Brahma put in the cave. And the actual boys and calves just carried on with their Leela. Meanwhile, Krishna at the same time manifested himself as all the calves and all the cowherd boys. So this is 3 different prakashas that this is going on in. In one prakash, there's the Mayic boys over in the cave with, if you will, with the calves. In another one, Krishna is just carrying on with his Leela. Nothing happened. And the cowherd boys are experiencing that. So in that Prakash, Krishna's not experiencing any separation from them. And then in the other Prakash, which is manifest for the purpose of fulfilling the ambitions of the sadhana siddhas who attained Vatsalya rasa, who wanted to have Krishna, who serve Krishna in Vatsalya rasa, like cows, like the mothers and fathers of the other cowherd boys. They have a maternal relationship with Krishna, and it's full, but he's still not exactly their son. So he made himself exactly their son by manifesting himself in the form of the cowherd boys. So he's accomplishing obviously many things at once. He's quite a clever fellow. And so for that purpose, and for also showing who he was to Brahma, what is his own power, which is a point of tattva that Brahma now gets in place, and he understands Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Now that he has it in place, he can shift from a Vaidhi Bhakti Marg orientation to a Rag Marg Bhakti orientation and attain his ideal, as he did, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, as Haridas Thakur, through Nam Bhajan in Gaur Leela. We can argue he became a Sakha. So this is all happening in different prakashas or different sections of the Leela that are all going on at the same time. Does that help?
Yes.
It's a head spinning
I
Leela
can
for
wrap
sure.
my mind around it, but
Yeah, but Brahma couldn't wrap his poor heads around it. So I'm going to go into this Brahma-vimohan-lila in Madhavan for my lectures,
oh,
and
good.
interface the narrative with Brahma's reflections on them in the form of his prayers. So, of course, I've written about it as well, but I'll elaborate hopefully on what I've written, and that'll be there for you to listen to over the next month. Jai.
Thank you.
Gopal Krishna ki jai.
Jai.
Next question.
Prem Das has a question, and it's in the
Prem Das.
chat.
Okay.
Let me scroll up. Okay, so from the Bhagavad-Gita, we learn that Paramatma is a witness who sanctions the fulfillment of the desires of both materialists and Krishna's devotees. What criteria is Paramatma driven by when fulfilling or nor not fulfilling the desires of a living entity?
Can you read it once more?
Yeah. So from the Bhagavad-Gita, we learn that Paramatma is the witness who sanctions the fulfillment of the desires of both materialists and Krishna's devotees. What criteria is Paramatma driven by when fulfilling or nor not fulfilling the desires of a living entity? You can also scroll up and see it because it's in the chat
I
for
got it.
everyone. Okay.
Yeah. Well, first of all, and we talked about this a little bit, I think, last week, and I've written about it in the past as well. In the course of bhakti, then the Paramatma feature of Bhagavan, Paramatma is a feature of Bhagavan, and partial expression of himself, if you will, as the oversoul of the world in three forms: Mahavishnu, Garbhadaksha Vishnu, Shirodaksha Vishnu. In the course of their bhakti, this Paramatma is replaced, if you will, from the heart with Gopal Krishna, with Radha and Krishna. the Krishna Brata. And this comes out, as I mentioned, in the Shikshastakam, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Nadanam Najanam Nasundaram Kavitam Va Jagadishakam. I don't have any reason, any aspirations, worldly aspirations. So the Lord of the world, the Jagadishwar, is no longer a concern for me, but Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavata Bhakti. I only want bhakti to the Lord. Now he's speaking of the Lord of my heart, the Lord of my prananath, who I'm living for. Well, Krishna's taken the place of the Paramatma for the devotees. Now I know that's not your question, but when we say that the Paramatma, you did say the Paramatma fulfills the desires, I guess for bhakti, you're thinking of the devotees. We think more that Krishna is fulfilling the desire, not the Paramatma feature, because it's Krishna whom we're approaching directly, and he has the capacity to hear our prayers, even though he's wrapped in the embrace of Radha, or lamenting that he doesn't have her embrace and pouring his heart out to Subal-Saka about that dilemma. So that's one thing. Now, what is the? I think it is. What is the position, or what's going on with Paramatma fulfilling the desires of the ordinary jivas? Let me see. What exactly did you say? Oh, I don't see it in the chat. But at any rate, Paramatma is rather neutral. He doesn't have pastimes, so to speak, like Krishna. He's more depicted as a witness. And as a witness, he witnesses the acts of the jivas in whose heart he's present, which warrant either reward or punishment, which is the function not per se of Vishnu, Paramatma, but of material nature. In other words, if the jiva has exploited material nature is going to want to get a return. If you put money in the machine, something's going to come out, something's going to come back at you. So how we interact with the Maya Shakti has consequences. But Maya Shakti cannot function in terms of rewarding, a system of rewards and punishment that correspond with the acts of the jivas without the sanction of Paramatma, because she is his Shakti. So he does not have a relationship with the Maya Shakti like he has with the Swarup Shakti, but he has a relationship with her. It's his shadow, if the Swarup Shakti is his light, if you will. She's the dark side of Krishna Chandra, the moon, the Krishna moon. So the moon has a bright side, it has a dark side. So the dark side is obscuring the jiva's understanding of his position and the position of Bhagavan, and the jiva is fostering that obscuration by the exercise of its will, which we do all the time, right? We do things that warrant a particular action. We're acting in ignorance, with the form of which is attachment, which warrants a reaction that's not knowledge, only indirectly. We can get knowledge from ignorance. If we observe the results of our ignorance, we can kind of sort it out and stop acting in that way to some extent. But the point is that material nature, whose function is to reciprocate with the jivas who are interacting with her in ways that are appropriate. That's karma. but she can't do that without Vishnu's sanction. So he gives the sanction. That's what he does. He gives the sanction. That's what he's doing. He's not saying this should happen to that one, that should happen to this one. But there's a very complex system we call karma that Krishna says in the Gita. You can't sort it all out. Why exactly this happened? Why exactly you got this result? And you would need a computer that's bigger than the one that runs Bitcoin or something. You can't. You can't. The data that it works with is every thought, every blink of the eye of every being. Is recorded and computed, and a result is put out. And Vishnu goes, okay, yep, that's right, got that right, something like that. So he's a bit removed, but he's also said to Paramatma to be waiting for the jiva to turn, and despite the jiva's material sojourn with its material ups and downs, he stays with the jiva, waiting to turn for him to turn. And when the jiva turns inward, then it said, Guru Krishna Prasade Bhai Bhakti Lata Bhuj. The outer form of the inner guide appears as the Mahant, as the Guru, to bring us to Krishna himself, who the Paramatma, as I say, is a partial manifestation of. So I hope that answers your question. If not, you can give us some further feedback as we go forward now. And take another question.
Indra has a follow-up question.
Okay.
She says, how does the transition from Paramatma to Krishna in the heart happen? Is it gradual or overnight when we as sadhakas pass a certain threshold? And then in parentheses, she says, and our sincerity to surrender?
Well, it should be there and immediately in our own minds. We should make Krishna our deity, not the four-armed Vishnu who is kind of for the sake of meditation described as standing in the heart size of the thumb. That's for conceptualization, conceptualizing something that's beyond the mind, but we use the mind to help us get beyond it through such conceptualizations in yoga, meditating on Vishnu, the Ishwar in the heart. So we have adhikar for bhakti. So therefore, our deity is Krishna, and Krishna bhakti. Our deity is two-handed Krishna in Vrindavan. This is what's given to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we make a deity. We worship a deity like this, and we should think he is the Lord of my heart from very day one. But the extent to which we have material desires, we may still be under the jurisdiction then of the Paramatma who oversees the world of those desires. Therefore, as I say, when we come to the stage of ruchi where there's no more material desire, well, we're not under his jurisdiction in any way any longer. So there's a difference between conceptualization and then the fact, if you will. But the fact that we're under the influence of material nature, we may still have material desires and so forth. And we haven't attained the stage of ruchi, doesn't change the fact that our deity is Krishna, and that we can think that Krishna is doing this rather than the Paramatma. Krishna's doing it. Paramatma may be witnessing, sanctioning, but we also think actually what's happening is something a little different than what would have happened if I was involved in Krishna bhakti. So you should think immediately. You shouldn't think, I'll meditate on the Paramatma first, and then gradually I'll meditate upon Krishna. In the beginning of Sukadev's speech to Maharaj Parikshit in second canto of the Bhagavatam, he begins by speaking about the universal form of the Lord. He speaks about the Paramatma form of the Lord. But this is thought to be for other people in the audience who don't have the adhikar of Parikshit. We may not be as advanced as Parikshit, but we're following in the footsteps, so to speak, of his bhakti, and his adhikar for bhakti, which it makes him a worshiper of Krishna. So those are some thoughts on that. I hope that helps.
So the next question was actually another question that Indra had, just like a separate question. So she said, Haribol, dear Maharaj and devotees, I was wondering if there is any correlation between the Dwadasa Gopals and the 12 principal forests, and if there is maybe, if there is maybe none of that we know, is there somewhere more insight as to why Krishna, as the supreme creator, chooses certain numbers, not just as the magic 108, but why are there exactly 6 main Goswamis, 8 main gopis, etc.? In short, I am wondering if you could tell us what you have heard about the symbolism of numbers in Vaishnavism. Thank you.
Not much. I'm not a numerologist, but there are magic numbers from a mathematical point of view. And I did research once on 108, and it's quite a bit about that, all different cultures. So there is something to be said for these numbers, I would think. But I have not studied that, and I have not found anything. I mean, I would be interested to read it, but I have not read any commentaries that elaborate upon that. There may be some texts, Hindu texts, that deal with numbers more, but they've never been my thing, and math is not my thing either. So I can't really say too much about that. But like I said, I did the research on 108, and I was pretty amazed once at all. It's cross-culturally in so many ways that this 108 is considered to be an auspicious number. So there may be something to that as far as why the 12 forests, why the 12 gopals, why the 8 principal gopis, as you ask. But I can't reply conclusively. As far as the other part of your question, is there any relation between the 12 forests and the 12 gopals? Nothing that I know of has been said about that either. The 12 forests are elaborated upon in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad. And that is not much, but the most I've seen in terms of any elaboration upon the 12 forests, and doesn't deal with the number 12. So I don't know everything. Thank you for the question, so I can remind myself.
Yeah, I was also
how little I know. Yes.
I was also wondering about that yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah. Padmanabha Swami is putting a verse in the chat, so we could read that later. And he's getting to the English translation, I think. There we go.
The body it's part 1. It's a long one. The body, the total body, and the individual body. Well, this is a long one. Part 2 says the body, the total body, and the individual body are the same composition. And anyway, that body, the total body, may be figuratively called the original tree. From this tree, which fully depends on the ground of material nature, come 2 kinds of fruits: the enjoyment of happiness, suffering of distress. The cause of the tree forming its 3 roots is association with the 3 modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. The fruits of bodily happiness have four tastes: religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, liberation, which are experienced through the five senses for acquiring knowledge in the midst of six circumstances: lamentation, illusion, old age, death, hunger, and thirst. The 7 layers of bark covering a tree are the skin, blood, muscle, fat, bone, marrow, and semen. And the 8 branches of the tree are the 5 gross and the 3 subtle elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. The tree of the body has 9 hollows: the eyes, the ears, the nostrils, the mouth, the rectum, and the genitals, and the 10 leaves, the 10 airs passing through the body. And this tree of the holy body, this tree of the body are the 2 birds. In this tree, of the body are the 2 birds. One is the individual soul, the other is the supreme soul. Sounds like from the what is it? Is it the 15th chapter of the Gita where the upside down banyan is described? And he says here, 12 and 6 numbers are divisible. 12 and 6 are numbers divisible by 108. So there's some things, not so much dealing with the Leela and so on, about numbers there, the reference that he supplied for us. Yogis may know more about this kind of thing. Chakras and numbers. So, another question?
Yeah, Brigu has a question.
Okay.
Dhanyavad, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
I'm reading the Bhakti Ratnakara right now, and reading it, I remembered that O.B.L. Kapoor, in one of his books, he has some great soul, I forget who it was, speak about this book and telling a disciple that the point of the Bhakti Ratnakara is, or the theology of the Bhakti Ratnakara is to teach about vicarious bhakti, that the best kind of bhakti for a householder is to support some great saint, so that the great saint kind of does the bhakti for you. Reading the Bhakti Ratnakara, I remember this. I'm not finding such a doctrine in the text directly or indirectly, but I started wondering, is there actually something like that? Because, of course, we know that it's good in so many ways to serve the great devotees, but on the other hand, bhakti is said to be a conscious effort, anushilanam. So can there be such a thing as vicarious bhakti is my question.
Yeah, I've never heard that, and it's hard for me to imagine that being a theme that consistently runs through Bhakti Ratnakara, which is more of a historical text. And it's a text that I haven't really read, only parts here and there, but still it's hard for me to imagine that. I never heard the concept of vicarious bhakti in the way in which you're speaking about it. The only thing that comes to mind for me in this regard is the fact that sadhana bhakti might be described as an apprenticeship within bhakti, whereas bhava bhakti is bhakti proper, because bhakti includes action and emotion, and ultimately action is driven by emotion, and that's spiritual emotion, trans-psychological emotion, if you will, bhava. So without bhava, how much are you a bhakta when you don't have all of bhakti is the point. But there is such a thing called a sadhana bhakti and the sadhakas, right? According to Rupa Goswami. So they might be thought of more as apprentices. And what they're doing is imitating, in a positive sense, the activities of advanced devotees, serving them, and by serving them, growing in their own bhakti. But it's not that their apprenticeship is meaningless and that it doesn't self-count for any bhakti. It is called sadhana bhakti. So it is a form of bhakti, and it is effort, based effort to get grace and so forth. It's interesting that you mentioned this point in relation to Dr. Kapoor, because I believe that Dr. Kapoor learned this. I'm just thinking of this now, I mean, because I had many conversations with him from the Babaji, Gaurangadas Babaji. After the passing of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and the break of Gaudiya Math, Dr. Kapoor, as a householder, went to live in Vrindavan. And there he came in touch with Gaurangadas Babaji without trying. And he was quite startled by his bhakti and his endeared.
That's the problem. I know.
By the grace of Gaurangadas Babaji, who happened to be in Charandas, Radharaman Charandas Babaji's lineage, which Bhakti Vinod took exception to with regard to some of the things that Charandas Babaji taught, like particular Nitai Gaur Radhesham Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram, this mantra and the story behind that. There's a small book written by I forget whom, which is biographical about Bhakti Vinod, and even Louis Prashad endorsed or wrote a preface to it. One of the younger son of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, in which one of the chapters deals with objections of Bhakti Vinod to Charandas Babaji. Interesting, Charandas Babaji taught that Bhakti was inherent in the jiva. I guess he didn't object to that because Bhakti Vinod seemed to teach that as well. Anyway, it's a different Gaudiya group, right? And to the point, Dr. Kapoor told me that he asked Gaurangadas Babaji if he should turn his attention to Lila Smaranam at this time in his life. And he told him, no, you should publish books, and I'll do the Lila Smaranam for you. I'll do the bhakti for you. So it makes sense in terms of what you're talking about. And so he had some, thought about that, some idea about that. He told me of incidents in which, after the passing of Gaurangadas Babaji, he was taking care of himself, Dr. Kapoor, and his wife through these miraculous, events that occurred in their life that, if they could trace it out, they could only attribute it to this, his influence. And so he had this was his experience. And there seems to be perhaps, but that's where he got this idea of vicarious bhakti to some extent. And there's something to it in a sense, but as you say, I think that we do have to emphasize there is something called sadhana bhakti that does involve effort on the part of the jiva, and that is, while not the full expression of bhakti, it is nonetheless bhakti that the jiva herself is doing. Of course, then you go to another level, the vicarious experience of Radha Bhav and her romanticism with Krishna. Her experience of it is vicariously experienced by the Manjari, who has a platonic relationship with Krishna. It's full-on Madhurya, but she has a platonic, actually romantic, friendly relationship with Krishna, who doesn't want to have any overt romanticism with him, but experiences vicariously the romanticism that Radha experiences with Krishna. So you have it on that level. That seems clear. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you for the question. It looks like you're doing some cooking this morning. Is that correct?
Yes, it's evening here. We're making gingerbread cookies for Christmas.
Very nice. offer them to Jesus. Yes.
They look like this.
Prince of Peace. Very nice. Very nice. Prabhupada said it is a kitchen religion. Kitchen, cooking ananda. So very good. All right, so is there another short question or comment? Okay.
Guru
I
Maharaj,
don't have any more written down, but
Guru Maharaj,
maybe, I don't think so, but maybe someone would write something in the chat.
We're just
Guru
about out of
Maharaj?
time. Yes, Padmanabh
Can I-
Maharaj, yes?
can I ask you briefly some follow-up question to the last thing you mentioned?
Yes.
I don't know if you will have something to say regarding the idea of in the same way as the Manjaris have a vicarious experience of Radha's experience in union with Krishna, how much that can be applied to a Priyanarma Saka having a vicarious experience of Krishna's experience in connection to Radha.
Yes, I've written about that. And I think that while there is union and separation in Sakyaras, Yog, Viyog, and whatnot, which also applies to Manjari Bhav. In Manjari Bhav, there's also the vicarious experience of Radha's union and her separation. So while the Manjari experiences Yog and Viyog, union and separation, directly with regard to Krishna, that handmaiden also experiences Radha's separation. So similarly, while the Priyanarmasakas had the experience of union and separation with Krishna, their intimacy with Krishna and their empathy for and sympathy for his romantic life allows them to vicariously experience his pangs of separation from Krishna, from Radha. And so there's some similarity in that regard. Does that answer your question?
Yes, maybe I was more wondering concerning the experience of union in this case. Like the Manjaris experience some of the things that Radha experiences in union with Krishna, even with physical symptoms and whatnot. So I was wondering how much that
I've only
applies.
written about the separation.
Okay, yeah, we have to enter through separation, no problem.
Well, not only that, no, it's because they experience to some extent the separation that Krishna's experienced of Radha. They may experience the happiness of his union, but not in with all the romantic details of experience that a Manjari might be said to experience. For example, if Krishna bites the neck with a love bite of Radha, I think Raghunath Das Goswami has written about it showing up on Rupa Manjari. And so that's what you're talking about, I think, the vicarious experience of the actual romantic union. But the vicarious experience of in the Tad-bhav or Anumodana Bhav, Tad Anumodana, of which sympathetic love. So the Manjari has this kind of Madhurya Rasa, that it's not with an interest directly in romantic experience with Krishna, but in bringing Radha to Krishna. And vicariously she experiences the union and the separation, but her Anumodana, or the Manjari's Anumodana, is different than the Saka's Anumodana, because for the Manjaris, they are experiencing Tad-bhav or Tad Anumodana, sympathetic love for Radha and Krishna's romanticism within Madhurya Rasa. So it's direct. Jiva Goswami describes in Priti Sandarbha direct Tad Anumodana Bhav and partial. Sakshat and Lesha, direct or full and partial. So partial will refer to that type of Tad Anumodana that it's experienced in a different rasa. So the cowherds' friends are in Sakya rasa. They're not in Madhurya rasa. So therefore they don't experience direct implications of romantic intimacy in a homoerotic, sense. But they experience indirectly the separation, whereas the Manjaris will experience such that in terms of the union, that if the love bite is appearing on her neck, the implication is she's experiencing all the ecstasies that underlie that outward, the way that it outwardly expresses itself in that form. So there's a difference between the two. There's a likeness, but a difference. The difference is because they're in different rasas. So it's full, sakshat, direct, and partial. Does that help?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, thank you so much.
I see that you're in Madhuvan.
Yes, we are waiting for you here.
Yeah, it looks nice there. Nice and warm. It's quite cold here now in California.
Here is quite
So,
nice, though. Yeah.
See you tomorrow evening then.
Yeah.
Okay, nice to be with all of you. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
Lord Premanandi, Haribol.
Haribol. Okay, I will make the announcements. Well, I guess the announcements, are they changing? Because there's going to be some classes soon, right? In Madhavan. Do I need to announce those?
Right.
Right. Okay, who said that? Was it Sakyarati?
Yes.
Okay. I can't see you. Oh, are you talking from Madhavan? I can see you now. Okay. Let me go. Do you have those up? They're on Sri Chaitanya Sangha, like the group, right? Because I saw them recently.
I just published it on Madhavan if you want. It's just the first post.
Okay, that's good.
That photo.
So are the classes, it's hard to keep up with everything. So are the classes that are normally happening also happening while the classes in
No,
Madhavan? No,
no.
they're not happening. Okay, so it's just going to be the classes.
An interview. There's,
Yeah.
you're doing one interview. That's the only class that's happening between now and the end of the month, or through January.
Okay, the interview that
It's gonna be Gopal Nandini. So
that's going to be on Thursday.
Thursday at 11:30. We have to stop at 12:25. So that will Guru Maharaj can do his class at 12:30. Our time.
Okay. So there are going to be classes
From Tuesday to Friday, Guru Maharaj, and they will be like 1 hour later than usual. So depending on where you are on the world, it's just 1 hour later.
So
like
Tuesday,
for example, on Thursday, when there will be Gopal Nandini interview, right after when the interview is finished, there will be Guru Maharaj class.
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be happening through January 20th. So it's going to be a month of that schedule.
Exactly, from Tuesday to Friday, and the Swami Call also will be 1 hour later.
Swami Call will be 1 hour later.
And then there is Swami Padmanabha in the evening. He will give class the whole week, but not on Wednesday and Sunday.
Okay.
And he will give class at 6:30 Madhuvan time, which is
that 4:30 our time?
6:30 p.m. Madhuvan time, Costa Rican time.
Okay.
For East Coast.
Yeah, I think it's 7:30 North Carolina evening.
Okay.
What time is it there now?
It's 12:35 here.
So we are 1 hour earlier.
Okay. Has anyone made like a poster for this? Or like, is there like
Yeah.
one? Okay, so there is a poster for this. Okay.
It's the all groups, but if you go on Madhuvan page,
That's okay. That's what I'm
there are
saying.
some photos from today, and the last
Yeah.
is this poster.
Yes.
Up a whole thing, all the schedule. She was working on it.
Okay. Because I'm seeing the poster with when Gurudev is talking, but not including when Padmanabha is talking. Maybe I'm just looking at the wrong poster.
Yeah, maybe you're in the wrong poster. Did you open
Okay.
the photo?
Did I open what?
On the photo?
Okay. Makes more sense. Okay, so that's important, everyone. Don't be like me. When you go on the Madhavan page, like it's a little confusing because it just looks like it's just a poster that just shows, but you have to click on it and then all the details so you see the full poster. Maybe everyone but me already did that.
Probably want to stop your streaming and your recording.
I'm gonna do that now, yeah, because I was about to do that. Okay, stop live stream, stop this.